Thank you, Mrs. Harland. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in one territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Mr. Robert Hutchings. I'll be chairing the hearing today. I'm joined on the panel by Ms. Kira Penner and Ms. Cynthia Stevens. Our secretary today is Mrs. Harland, and our assessor representing the Assessment Taxation City of Winnipeg is Jonathan Spacek. We will be hearing applications for a revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which, excuse me, revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking in matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following their swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant and the panel may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Again, each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions based on the evidence presented here today. You will receive the board's decisions by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1, 2, and 4 on our docket today. Mrs. Harland, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Applicant, would you please stand? Sure. Would you please state your full name?
My name is Jared Story.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please be seated. Mr. Assessor,
Yes.
would you please state your full name?
Jonathan Spacek.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Harland. First item on the docket today is item number 1, file number 24-2619, roll number 130600-82500. Address is 395 Avenue, and it's a 2025 realty appeal that we're dealing with this morning. Good morning to Mr. Spacek and Mr. Story. Mr. Spacek, any preliminary issues on this property?
No preliminary issues on this property.
Mr. Story, any preliminary issues on this property?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Spacek, when you are ready, 395 Notre Dame Avenue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We are looking at file number 24-2619. This is roll number 1306008250. We are located at 395 Notre Dame Avenue, and we have a 2025 assessed value of $307,000 that I am asking to be confirmed today. We have a single story. I've included some pictures on page 2 you can look at, but we have a single story office. Was built in 1975 with no major changes, so we still have an effective year of 1975. We have a gross floor area of 3,082 with a leasable area of 2,792. If you look at our page 2 overhead view, you'll notice we're located at the corner of Notre Dame Ave and Ellen Street on the northwest corner. The property itself is located on the fronting onto Notre Dame, and then on the back there's a back lane that runs across it, and then it has room for approximately 5 spaces of parking on the lot itself. Again, you can see on page 3 on the street view at the bottom what I'm talking about. We have the building and then a small parking, like a lane to go into the back, and then some spots to park the cars. If we turn to my page 4, you'll see they've always complied with our request for information. I've included the subject property lease, as this property does have a net lease in place as the time of the reference date. So you'll notice that it is leased out, and they have, one difference I noticed was they have 3,117 square feet. So this is larger than even what we have as the size of the building. But again, I was unable to confirm what the actual size of the building was. We have a lease that started March 1st, 2020, that runs until February 29th, 2024. And if you run the numbers, it works out to $9.95 a square foot. So the tenant is paying the owner $9.95 a square foot for access to the whole space of the building. If we if you scroll down two pages to page 6, you'll see how this compares to our actual income workup for this property. So our income workup is 2,792 square feet. So that was what we had as the old leasable area, which is less that it being reported is currently being leased, but we have it at $8.49. So again, this is over almost $1.50 lower than what's being currently recouped by the owner. But our model generated rent is $8.49. We have our standard OFS parameters. A vacancy loss is 6%, expenses at 3%, shortfall at $8, and then we have an overall capitalization rate for this property at 6.6%. This gives us a total 2025 value of $307,000. If you scroll up a page now and go back to my page 5, I've just included some rent comparables. I tried to find some larger OFSs around that 3,000, or to better try to represent that 3,000 square foot space. Again, a wide range of OFSs across the city. We don't have a ton on the actual Notre Dame Street itself, as it's not a super popular spot for these standard offices we're looking at, or 4-story and under offices. But I would say one of the closest comparables would be comparable 11. It's a single story OFS located at 155 Fort Street. So this is downtown. It has built in 1928, so it's an older building. It has a lease signed in 2021 for 6 years. It's 4,688 square feet, and it's $12 a square foot. So that's comparable 11 would be probably the closest in my opinion. If we turn to my page 10, I've just included the income and expense mailer they sent in. They just sent in a standard income statement showing approximate NOI of $31,000. And just for comparison, we have showing an NOI on our income workup of $20,274. So, and the only other issue on this one that I've found from speaking to Jared about, and he'll be able to share his position on, is that we have next door. So if we turn to page 2, there is a common ownership in the parking lot next door. So if you turn to my page 2 and you look at the above view picture of the property, you will see that there is the same owner owns the lot next door. So from my understanding and what I've been told, that lot is being used as part of the lease to be offered for employees to park. And when these situations come up outside of the downtown zoning, so when you're located outside of the downtown zoning, there is a requirement for parking for buildings based on their use. So this building is an office building. If you look up the zoning, and when I've come across this in the past, I always look, what is the requirement for parking for a building of this size for office use? It is for every 750 square feet of office floor, like flooring in the building of office space square footage, you are required 1 parking spot. So if you take that 3,100 square feet, you divide it by 750 square feet, there's a requirement for 4.1 parking stalls. So if I round it up to 5, In my eyes, there's still 5 parking stalls on the back of this building. The parking lot, again, it's being used by the owner for it. It's helping them get a lease, but I don't believe it's required. And the common argument is, the parking lot makes it one economic unit, and we should reduce the value of the parking lot off the main holding to better represent that value that the parking lot offers. So again, I believe, and you'll hear Mr. Story's side of it himself, but from my position and the ones I've had before is I do not believe that the parking lot needs to be reduced off of the building, and that's our position. And based on those reasons I stated, that is my whole presentation. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spacek. Mr. Story, any questions on the evidence presented by the assessor?
Yes, sir. Just a few. Mr. Spacek, are you aware of what this property or what this tenant, you'd mentioned the lease and you're quite correct. Are you aware of what goes on in this building?
No, I'm not exactly sure what the tenant does for work.
Okay. Okay. If you don't know, that's okay. I'll get to it in my presentation, but you mentioned the zoning. Can we agree that the zoning that you're referencing is the legal minimum requirement? That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about market value necessarily, but you're suggesting that the amount of parking satisfies the absolute bare minimum legal requirement. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Ms. Penner, any questions of the assessor?
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering if you could speak to the availability of off-site parking in the area. Is there opportunity for the tenants or their employees to use on-street parking, or are there any other parking facilities that could mitigate any shortfall that particular tenant needs?
I am not sure of the exact situation of like alternative parking lots nearby, and if there's like daily parking. I'm going to assume they're mostly per building that has those type of lots. They'll, like in this situation, they'll have it for their customers as a perk. And then there's just like you have street parking on Notre Dame, and side street parking would be the main options for if you were visiting. Just like some of the other buildings that don't have parking lots beside them in this location, it would be that kind of, you're parking on the street, or would be the main options.
Fair enough. That was all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Penner. Excuse me. Ms. Stevens, any questions of the assessor?
I'm sure Mr. Story will elaborate on this, but so in terms of the parking lot next door, is that assessed separately?
Yeah, it has its own
It has
land
its own
value.
assessment.
Yeah,
Okay,
it has
thank
its
you.
own
So-
land value next
Okay,
door.
so this is strictly the building assessment we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, okay. I understand parking is an issue, but I just wanted to clarify that. And in terms of the cap rate, is this considered suburban B? Or
I mean,
A?
it would be even worse than like if it would be
Yeah,
worse than
okay.
suburban B if I was making up ratings for these type. But yeah, it's not. It wouldn't be necessarily. Yeah, I guess on this list for the OFS for City of Winnipeg, you're looking at our 20th to 80th percentile closest to suburban B, 5.25 to 6.75. We're at 6.6, so it's just showing on the higher end of that OFB suburban B rating.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely not considered in the downtown. It's just outside. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely it's yeah, and all of our even so OFS is just 4-story and under now. But yeah, this would fall under the rating of suburban according to the zoning of the downtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I had. Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Mr. Spacek, just to confirm the zoning on the subject property M1.
I can confirm that's what's here. Yeah, M1. Yeah, manufacturing light.
Okay. And when you made reference to the requirements of parking spaces per 750 square feet, I believe you said, is that relevant to the zoning of M1 or?
Well, it's the use type. So from my understanding, it's this would be considered use, but again, I'm assuming it's being used as office space. So.
Okay. And the difference in the declared lease square footage to the assessed square footage. Any comments on that?
The leased versus the assessed, like the amount.
Yes.
Yeah, it would have to be reviewed as my answer. We'll have somebody go review, and if it needs to be adjusted going forward, it'll be adjusted.
Okay. All right. That is my only questions. Mr. Story, bear with us 1 second while we pull up your brief, please. If everybody has it, we shall proceed, Mr. Story, 390 Dame Avenue.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we've established that we are indeed at the corner of 395 Notre Dame Avenue. This is a building built in 1975. It's masonry construction. To clear up any issue regarding the leasable area, Mr. Chair, we've indeed used the 3,117 as per the lease, so a slightly higher leasable area, I believe, than the assessor. So that's not in question here. I had asked the assessor if he was aware of the goings on, or I should point out, actually, just so we get a good sense of where we are. This is the corner of Notre Dame and Ellen. When we cross Notre Dame, that would be Carlton, so that would be that path into Central Park. So it is a bit of a challenging area. Most of the retail around this section would be considered inferior, typically on the grand scheme of things for the city of Winnipeg. It is indeed zoned M1. It is a social, what I'll call broadly, a social services organization. It has to do with counseling services and workshops related to Indigenous restorative justice. So, and I mention this because it is not simply an office where 4 or 5 people work and the 4 parking stalls satisfy the need, but rather there are clients who are coming and going. I've included some photos. We do believe, with good reason, that the adjacent lot ought to be deducted from the main holding, as the rents that are being achieved, Mr. Chair, are contingent on the use of the parking lot next door. So those rents are subtended by the fact that they include the separately assessed and separately taxed role. So from our perspective, to include or to have it to have both roles taxed as though they were separate economic units has the result of double taxation. Ultimately, I've come to for the building proper, because I've used that leasable area that's reported on the INE, and because I've used the actual lease in place as the best indicator of value. I've used an 8% cap rate, which is quite reasonable given some of the challenges locationally. It's a good sturdy building. It looks good on the inside. I have some marketing photos. No real issue with condition, but we do have that well, what I'll call a somewhat incurable issue of location. So we've used an 8% cap rate, but all this to say that our income value on the building is slightly higher than the assessed value. So we're suggesting 334, 782. However, we do remove that 54,000 from the adjacent parcel so as to avoid double counting or double taxation for the owner. This value then leads us to a total value of 281,000. Now, as a way of background, Mr. Chair, 403 Notre Dame, which is that adjacent parcel, was indeed appealed, and we did withdraw it on the with the caveat that we would be withdrawing that appeal in order to ask that it simply be removed from this assessment. So it is not in play. It's not. We will not be appealing it further or seeking a reduction. That appeal is effectively finalized, but we pulled that appeal, withdrew that appeal, with the caveat that we would be seeking to reduce it from the main holding, which I believe is quite fair. So ultimately, our value is slightly higher. The assessor was suggesting 307 on the building alone. We're coming to 334, 782, but of course we do make that slight adjustment to reduce the value of the adjacent parking lot, which is required to subtend the current rents in place. That value once again is 54,000. So ultimately we come to an estimated value of 281,000 for this cycle, Mr. Chair, and we do respectfully submit that the value ought not to exceed 281,000 for the reasons that we've set forth here today regarding the removal of the adjacent parking. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Excuse me. Mr. Spacek, any questions of the applicant's evidence presented?
I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Stevens, any questions of the applicant's evidence?
And no, I think I understand the way you described it, Mr. Story, so I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Penner, any questions of the applicant?
Yes, please. I'm sorry, I'm just I don't know that I completely followed how the 54,000 was derived. Was
Sure.
that
Yeah, so that's the sorry, and thank you, Ms. Penner. I neglected to mention at the end of my brief, you can see the that's page 28 of my brief. You can see the property record for 403 Notre Dame. So that is indeed the adjacent parcel. And you can see the assessed value of 54,000. So that is the modeled value as issued by the city. It is no longer in dispute. So that is how we've determined that 54,000 ought to be deducted from the main holding.
wonderful? Okay, that makes perfect sense then. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that was my only question. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Penner. Mr. Story, so as I understand it, you had an appeal on, I'm looking at your site map. That would be the vacant lot is 403, the lot directly adjacent to the west side of the subject property?
That's correct, sir. Yeah.
Okay, and that is used as a parking lot, is that right?
That's used as a parking lot for our subject. That's correct. And Mr. Spacek is quite correct. There are 4 parking stalls in the back, but that is not enough to satisfy the needs of the tenant. And so they are able to use the parking lot, the adjacent lot, which is again separately assessed under common ownership. So that is the going that's on here, and that's why we're suggesting that it is indeed a single economic unit. It could very well be on one roll, but it's not. And since it's not, we have to ensure that we're not double counting for taxation purposes.
Right, okay. I'm going to go back to your photos, starting at the beginning here. Okay.
Yep.
So we've got, sorry, we're page 6, I believe. Yeah. Page 6, that would be the west side of the subject property, and that would be the vacant lot that we're referring to, having a value of $54,000, I believe.
Yes, sir. Where you can see those cars parked. So there's this building, and then there's that vacant lot, and then there's a small independent food store, and then there's a small old restaurant. But that vacant space is the 54,000 in question.
Okay.
The cars are, yeah.
And the following photo beneath is showing the rear of the property, I guess, with the excuse me, fence and plugs along the rear of the building, I guess, and then access to that adjacent lot, I guess. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's access to the site from that is Ellen Street. So there's no curb cut on Notre Dame. There's access to the back from Ellen Street.
Okay. What is the now I'm going to look at the bird's eye view. I think you've got it here. Sorry, I can't find the page. What is at the rear of this subject property?
Like what does it abut?
No, what business runs at the rear of the subject property?
Oh, that's simply the back exit. It's all single tenant. It's a single property. Yeah.
Sorry. What is the adjacent property at the rear? Is that Canada Post?
I believe so. I don't want to say because I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I think that is correct. Certainly looks like it. And from my memory, I think that's correct, but I would be speculating. I think it is. It's certainly you can see from the photos, it's a distribution center, and based on that fencing and whatnot, and knowing that Canada Post has an operation, I think it is, but I can't say it with 100% certainty, but I think you're right.
Yeah, looking at the assessor's site map and then looking at your picture page. The second one, there's a bunch of Canada Post trucks
Oh,
parked.
there you go. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So this lot, oh yeah, and then the first one, you've got the Canada Post loading docks at the rear. So this adjacent property that we're talking about, is that used for clients to come or is it used for staff?
I'm sorry, for the parking lot, for our parking lot that we're talking about?
Yeah, the adjacent.
Yeah, it's for clients and staff. That's correct.
Okay. Now, following up on Miss Penner's question, there is available parking, street parking and other parking on Ellen Street and off of Ellen Street. Would that be
I
accurate?
think there is, but I think if I'm not mistaken, and we can look at the photos, I think it's time limited. I can certainly see that it's metered based on page 8. Mr. Chair, that's you can see on Ellen, there's a no stopping sign. I know there's a snow route right in front of the main entrance, and it would be metered parking. So it doesn't appear to be free parking unless you're there for, I guess, 2 hours on a Saturday or whatever the case may be. But it's metered. It's not, yeah,
So it's metered 2-hour restricted parking, I guess.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right. I guess my question is, and I'm not sure if you can answer this, is this lot used for is it rented out for instance, neighboring business parking?
No, it's used for 395 Notre Dame. That's the use of that parking.
Okay. All right. Excuse me. And you stated that the parking lot was an appeal on a separate roll and you withdrew it. With the belief or the understanding that it was going to be removed from this property?
Yeah, so we removed it. It was under appeal. So occasionally what happens, Mr. Chair, is the vacant land parcels will come up to appeal well in advance of the appeals of the main holding. I mean, ideally, it would be great if we could do them together. That would be good, but I mean, these appeals are generally typified by use, so the vacant lands tend to get batched together. So we looked at it and we don't have an issue with the 54,000. That's fine, but we had it under appeal because we wanted to discuss. It's come up before, Mr. Chair, where if we don't appeal that vacant land, then the question is, well, why wasn't it under appeal if you're appealing the entirety as a single economic unit? So we register a protective appeal. And then in our discussions with a different assessor and different agent from our office, they discussed it and said, okay, there's no issue on value here, so we will simply withdraw it, but we will then make the case as we are exactly what we're doing here today and suggest that it ought to be removed from the main holding. So yes, it was under appeal. It has been withdrawn with the I guess our request that it be removed from the main holding. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. Spotcheck, are you aware of any such discussion happening?
Sorry, what do you mean discussion, like about that situation?
Yeah, that the value would, the applicant would withdraw the value with the understanding that it should be removed from the assessment of the subject property we're dealing with today.
I mean, like, it happens. It doesn't happen, like it sometimes the board will grant it, sometimes they won't. Sometimes we accept the situation if it's meant to be.
What I mean is, are you aware that discussion happened and there was implied consideration?
Sorry, sir, I'm not suggesting.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, I don't think that's
I'm
what he's
not
saying.
suggesting that the assessor has agreed to this previously. I don't want to be misconstrued. I'm not suggesting that Mr. Spatchik has suggested that. Yeah, just want me to be
Yeah,
very.
no, not at all. No, not at all. I understand that, Mr. Story. I wasn't saying that. I just
Okay.
wondering if the assessor was aware of this situation. Obviously, it comes up, as a panel, we've dealt with it before, but
Yeah, I'm aware of the situation. That's why I kind of stated my side of it and where I am on this position. And again, I know there are situations where it is one economic unit, and those there's parking required much well above the the zoning, and that's usually my that's my obvious that's where I make the obvious decision to accept it or not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay,
Kind of a
so
good baseline for me.
in your, I guess I missed it. Well, no, I think I got it, but I just want clarification. In your opinion, the value should not be removed from this assessment value for the subject property.
Yeah. Again, like I stated in mine, I do believe it's yeah. I don't think
Okay,
it should be removed.
all right. Thank you. I just needed clarification on that. Okay, that is all my questions. Any questions arising, Mr. Story, perhaps you? Anything?
No, sir, no further questions. I think we're very clear. We believe this to be one economic unit, and the rents in place are dependent on the parking. So that's our position.
Okay, so that's basically your summary. How we'll leave it at that. Mr.
Sounds good.
Any requirement for summary?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
I think we've clarified what your stand is. Maybe it was me not catching it, but anyway, okay, perfect. All right, so that concludes item number 1, 395 Notre Dame Avenue. Next item on the docket is item number 2. File number 24-1986, roll number 130610 71,000. Address is 514 Hargrave Street, and we're dealing with a 2025 assessment appeal. Mr. Spotcheck, bear with me 1 second here. We'll get to your brief and Mr. Story's brief. I'm reversed here. Okay. There we are, 514 Hargrave Street. Mr. Spotcheck, when you're ready, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We're looking at file number 24-1986. This is roll number 1306-107-1000. We are located at 514 Hargrave Street. Again, we're looking at the exchange area. This is just off of Bannatyne Ave on the west side of Hargrave. You'll see it's located between 2 parking lots. The appellant and I have come to an agreement on this one, a late agreement, and I was unable to include the workup. So if we turn to my page 5, you'll see the original workup, 2,500 square feet over 2 premises. We have our standard OFS parameters for 2025. We have a 6% vacancy loss, 3% expenses, 6.75% cap. I'm going to say what I am recommending today, and that is what I did was I actually reviewed the space and something wasn't adding up. So I went back to 2018. There was a permit in place to update the space to be used as a recording and voiceover studio. Again, at the total square footage of this property being used is 2,663 square feet. And I've adjusted the blended rate from $12.64 to $11 a square foot. This gives you a potential gross income of $29,293.
Mr. Spotcheck, sorry, can we go slowly here?
No
So
problem.
you revised the square footage from 2,500 square feet to 2,663.
Yes.
And then a blended rate of
The
11.
total, yeah, $11 across that.
Okay, which gives us a
Total gross income of $29,293.
okay.
And then I followed the rest of the parameters on my page 5. So we have a 6% vacancy, 3% expenses, $8 shortfall, 6.7, or sorry, and then I've upped the cap to 7%.
Okay.
And this gives you a total value of $363,000.
I would require the net operating income revised, please.
Net operating income is revised at $25,431.
431 with a capitalization rate of 7%.
7%, yeah.
Okay. 7.0. Resulting in a revised verbal recommendation to make.
363,000.
Okay. Using the same parameters except for the cap rate, right, in the revised.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you could briefly go through your brief, maybe summarize what you've done.
No problem. You can just see that the property is on page 2. It's a single story, again, office space that's, being used as a recording studio / voiceover work. Again, sound work, we'll call it that. Page 4, I've included the same comparables, just standard kind of office space around the city, trying to represent that, closer to that, we have 2,600 square feet on this one. Again, closest comparable, probably Ford Street at $12 a square foot. And I've just included the mailer. Again, it's owner occupied. So
Okay.
there is no lease in place, but again, using the market rent of I thought $11 was fair, and the total value of 363 is my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Story, any questions on the recommendation?
No, sir. Just like to say that we do accept the final value of 363. Thank you.
Okay. So rec is accepted. Okay. Stevens, any questions on the assessor's evidence presented?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Penner, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Spacek, did you visit the property?
No, I haven't been to it.
You just had discussions with Mr. Story.
Yes, yeah, and yeah.
All right. Okay. All right, Mr. Story, we're going to ask you to, you've accepted the recommendation, but I do need you to enter your brief into evidence.
Sure.
Just bear with me. Go backwards here. And there we are. Okay. If you'd like to just give a brief summary, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on Hargrave in a very old building here at behind the West Exchange. Properties originally built in 1882, wood frame, brick veneer exterior. We would call this West Alexander generally. The parcel is 3,795 square feet. I do note this is a new client, so I had a fair bit of discussion with Mr. Spacek regarding the leasable area, and we were able to clean that up. We were able to also discuss the permits that were issued. One of our agents did indeed visit the property when onboarding the new client. We've had discussions with the client, and they are in agreement with 363. So ultimately, the work that I've provided is based on an erroneous square footage that's since been amended. And so we are aligned with the 363 after a number of discussions with both the assessor and the owner. And with that, I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Ms. Penner, Mr. Spacek, any questions on the evidence presented?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Penner, any questions of the evidence presented by the applicant?
No questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
All right. And I have no questions either. That concludes item number 2, 514 Hargrave Street. Next item on the docket is, I guess the last item on the docket is item number 4, file number 24-2661. Address is 1008 Wall Street. Roll number is 13-0114-22600. We're dealing with a 2025 realty assessment appeal. And I understand there's a preliminary issue of a non-compliance request here. Is that right, Mr. Spacek?
That is true, yes.
Okay. Would you like to go through that preliminary issue first, please?
Absolutely. So as stated, we're looking at file number 24-2661. This is roll number 13011422600. The address is 1008 Wall Street. We have a 2025 assessment of $883,000, and it is classification 40, which is the taxable school exempt. So the preliminary issue is that the owner for the income year of 2022 did not send in a mailer. So when this happens, and all our modeled assessments, they are built based off this information sent from the owner. So it is obviously very important to us that we receive these. And when we don't, we do ask for the penalty, which is that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant, and that if there is a reduction found, it be postponed 1 year. As I've put under my recommendation, you can see exactly where in the act those are found. And the evidence I've included for this situation starts on page 9. So you can see I've included the information from Canada Post showing the tracking number for this one, and then the signatory name at the bottom and when it was delivered. So on June 12th, 2023, the certified mailer, which we send out after the original mailer is sent out. So the original mailer is sent out, we don't receive it, we send out a certified mailer with a tracking number to, again, to make sure that we are actually sending the owner this packet to be filled out. And you can see on page 9, this has been included, signatory name at the bottom, LW, and you can see the tracking number at the top, LP 661167796CA. So those last digits are important. As we turn to page 10, you'll see the tracking number again, June 12th, again, delivered at 11:42 a.m. And then if we scroll down to page 13, you'll see the income and expense mailer certified with the matching 796CA tracking number at the top left. So this is what was sent out. And when all of these things align that we've sent it out, it's been signed for, and we still didn't receive it, that is a situation where we asked for non-compliance. So that is the non-compliance evidence. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spacek. Mr. Story, any response to the request for non-compliance?
Just one quick question, Mr. Chair, and frankly, we will be seeking confirmation, but just while we're discussing it, Mr. Spacek, can you confirm to me if this was sent to the Wall Street address or to the registered owner's address on Regent Avenue?
Yeah, on page 13, you can see it was sent to Inland Development Limited,
Okay.
200 Regent Avenue West.
So it was sent to Regent. Okay, no, that's fine, Mr. Chair, and we're not disputing the request, so we're simply going to ask for confirmation on this file today.
Okay. Just to confirm, you're not disputing it?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right. The panel, we will recess to consider the evidence presented regarding this request for non-compliance. Ms. Harlan, can you in camera, please, and ask Mr. Story and Mr. Spacek to leave the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Story is back. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Harlan.
You're welcome.
I will now call the hearing back to order. The panel has discussed the request for non-compliance and is allowing that non-compliance to be applied. In that case, Mr. Story, the burden of proof will switch to you and you will present first. If you just bear with us a second, we'll find your brief, okay?
Sure.
Okay. If you want to just summarize your presentation and your I believe it's a request for confirmation.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. So it is roll number 13011422600, file 24-2661. Civic address is 1008 Wall Street, and we are simply requesting that the current assessment of $883,000 be confirmed for our purposes today, and I thank you.
Okay. And we will enter your brief into evidence for this hearing.
Thank you.
You. And that would be a verbal request for confirmation. Is that right, Mr.?
Yes, indeed, sir.
Okay, thank you. It wasn't in the, okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Spacek, let's get to your brief and where are you? Okay, there you are. When you're ready, Mr. Spacek.
Thank you very much. We are still at 1008 Wall, 2025 value, 883,000. Again, this property is another single story. What we have is an OFS, so office building under 4 stories. We have a leasable area of 5,079 square feet and a gross floor area of 5,079 square feet. I've used the same comparables on page 4 for these types of properties as we went over before. And you'll see on page 5 is the workup for this property. We have that 5,079 square feet at $13.11. Again, all this is model generated for the OFS type of building. We have a 6% vacancy, 3% expenses, $8 shortfall, and a 6.6% cap rate, giving us the total value of $883,000. And again, no mailer to look at, but that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spacek. Mr. Story, any questions on the evidence presented by the assessor?
No, sir, no questions of the assessor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, any questions of the assessor?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Penner?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and I have no questions either. That concludes item number 4, 1008 Wall Street. We have heard all the items scheduled and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you to both parties for appearing.